Hello, and welcome to another episode of Get Your Fill Financial Independence and Long Life, where we explore ways to achieve those two goals. And who better to help us do that than Lynne Bowman? Lynne is a self described snarky grandma. She doesn't own a restaurant. She's not a reality TV star. She doesn't have a medical degree, and she doesn't particularly like to cook, but she has a best selling new book called Brownies for Breakfast, a cookbook for diabetics and the people who love them. It is a cool, fun, beautiful guidebook for anybody who wants to eat healthy, vegan, vegetarian, pescatarian, gluten-free, and sugar-free. Oh my God, that's my whole diet. There'd be nothing left for me to eat. And Lynne is going to tell us how you can succeed without the things she doesn't have and with the things she does have, and just have a fun, amazing life. Lynne, thank you so much for being with us today. I can't wait to hear your journey.
Well, I love this, and I'm so happy to be with you, Christine. This is big fun for me. Podcasting, who knew?
Right?
Right? It's crazy. And here we are.
And here we are on opposite coasts.
3,000 miles apart.
Exactly. Fantastic. So, I mean, I don't even know where to begin to ask about how you went from being a non, not all these things to writing what I don't want to talk about the cookbook actually first. I want to talk about you and how you kind of got going, like a little bit of your backstory. Tell us how you came to this point in your life.
Well, as we were talking before we started recording, I'm really, really old. I'm 76. And so I'm in that cohort of people that people don't even think about anymore. It's like we automatically think, well, she's done, whatever she did, it's over here. And on the covers of magazines, it's always fashion at 20, 30, 40, 50. Wait, 60, wait, 7, wait, what? No. So I'm partly here just to tell you, hey, you can still be breathing and walking and having a good time in your 70s and beyond. And that's my intention. My intention is to still be wearing my cowgirl boots that I have on right this minute, standing up straight and giving orders, for another 25 years.
Fantastic.
And the more research that comes out and the more I read and study about it, we can do this. Yeah. We can continue to have really good, healthy, fun life, on and dress cool, if that's what we want to do. And
absolutely.
What you're hearing is this is a woman who's been in a hoodie for 2 years, right? Like everybody else. So I am kind of tickled to be looking back in my closet going, oh, hey, beautiful. How are you? Yeah. Why don't we, pull you out and we'll see what happens.
Right. It's like a whole new wardrobe. Like,
it's all new. I've forgotten all of it because I'm so old. Right. So it's all fresh and new. But I started out like everybody, I think, starts out, Christine. I stumbled out into the world clueless. And especially because when I was 18, my mother died. And my whole life that I had known, my house was gone, my dog had to go, my dad was basically off on another life, my brother and sister were older, they were gone. So at the age of 18, the saying your luggage was on the lawn, that really was me. And in those days, there was no time for mourning. Nobody wanted to talk to you about your grief or your feelings or anything. It's like, well, okay, girl, what are you gonna do now? Yeah. I was at UCLA. I had just started there in my first semester. So I did a couple more semesters at UCLA. And the whole time thinking, what am I doing here? This doesn't make any sense. Why am I here? It all seemed so kind of, I don't know. And remember, this was a time I graduated from high school in 1964. So one of our favorite words was irrelevant. It just was all so irrelevant. Because there was this huge schism between us, our generation, and our parents, the government, the world. We were all looking around going, this is nuts. Yeah. We've got this war going on that doesn't make any sense. Hello, we're here again.
The more things change, right? The more they stay the same.
Right. And, there were riots going on in LA and elsewhere about, race relations and so on. And So there was all of this upheaval. And as women, as females in 1964, the whole idea of, well, what are you going to do with your life? What's your plan? I was female. So what did it matter? I
It's
couldn't.
irrelevant.
Yeah, it was irrelevant. Totally. I couldn't go to Harvard. It wasn't co-ed. The whole idea of what we would do with our lives, what we would become, you had a couple of choices. You could get married, be a wife and mother, or let's see, what's number 2? Okay, you could be a nurse.
Prostitute.
You could be a prostitute. Just don't tell folks so much how you're coming up with those good clothes. You could be an actress. You could be, although there were no good parts and you're not speaking parts and so on. But I mean, and I'm being snarky, you were warned. But they're just, we didn't think of ourselves as having a future except those things, it was like, well, and we thought of ourselves as being the recipients of our future, right? It was going to happen to us. Some guy was going to do something, hire us or marry us or something, and then we would take it from there. So when I was 19 or maybe 20, I got a one-way ticket to Europe and went.
Wow, good for you.
Well,
look out.
I was free, which going back, it took me a long time to forgive my mom for leaving me. But one of the gifts that she left me was my freedom. And that's a thing we still don't give our daughters. We don't give our sons particularly either, but we really don't give our daughters much freedom, I think, to really take control, be in charge of and screw up. The whole idea of becoming successful and finding yourself involves, I'm sorry, screwing up big time. And I'm using good language here. How am I doing? And the more you mess things up miserably and land on your butt in the gutter, the more you know. And until you do that, you don't really know anything. I'm prejudiced, but that's what I think. I think, for example, no one should be elected to public office in this country, at least, who hasn't stayed up all night with a sick baby screaming, who hasn't been at the bedside of a dying relative for days, doing everything. I could make a list. Yeah. And if you look at your elected officials, you're going to see right away, you don't know these people, but you can be pretty sure they haven't done any of those things. Right. Which are the things, those are the skills, those are the experiences that make us human and that make us understand what we want the government to do and what we don't want it to do. Yeah. That screaming baby is a big time teacher. And that's if it's yours or your sister's or your granddaughter. Right. It's all the same thing. So I went to Europe and I was gonna, try my hand at being an illustrator, and I got jobs as a nanny, and I learned how to speak French better and drink, kind of bad wine that was still pretty good. And important note, I learned what a cassoulet was because I was eating cheap food on the streets of France. Which, if you haven't done that, if you haven't lived in Italy or France and eaten the cheap food,
you haven't lived.
Some stuff that you need to know. And a lot of what I talk about, Christine, you know this in my book and on my podcasts and so on, is about food, real food, and the importance of food and food with people. And in the United States and other parts of the world, we're exporting our awful food culture. We're removing ourselves from food and from how it's grown. Yeah. So those experiences of bouncing around and just sort of bumbling, and came back to the US, got jobs. In those days, you just got a job. We didn't even have resumes. It was like help one. And truly, and people, anybody who's under 50 doesn't know that in those days it was help wanted women and help wanted men in the newspaper. That's how we found jobs. We didn't have recruiters. We didn't have LinkedIn or anything. We had a newspaper, LA Times in my case, and it was help wanted women. And so that's how I got my first couple of jobs. And then I wound up getting a job that sounded pretty good. It actually was with Redken Laboratories.
Wow.
In Van Nuys. In those days, small, struggling, brand new, kind of groundbreaking cosmetic company. And I'm thinking, yes, hair stuff, I can do that. And took the job as, I think, copywriter. And 3 weeks after I had taken the job, I walked in on a Monday morning and everyone but me in the advertising department had been fired. And I'm pretty sure the only reason I wasn't was because I was the new girl and nobody had anything on me at that point. So I went into the president of the company, a woman, Paula Kent was her name, and said, okay, well, I'll just do everything I can do to keep this ship moving forward and we'll deal with it and so on. And she said, okay. And I did. And because, if you're desperate and you want the job, you just do whatever it makes sense to do. And in my case, all of the vendors, one by one, I said to each one of them, teach me. You need to teach me everything right now.
Wow.
So that we can move this, so that we can keep doing this. And so the printers and the reproduction art guy and all these folks said, okay, yeah, come on over to the shop and I'll show you how we're doing this stuff. And so that was my grad school.
That's
I
fantastic.
spent 3
What a
years,
great
and
opportunity.
it was a fantastic opportunity and I took it, which is my advice to everybody. Say yes.
Grab on both hands.
Yeah, I can do it. Yeah, I've seen people do that. Yeah, I can do that. And so for 3 years, I worked my tush off around the clock, the American way, 7 days a week, and traveled and did all this stuff. But I had started out as a 21-year-old doing this stuff. And I hired people and we pretty soon had a great little ad department going and it was fun and full of interesting people. Loved the beauty business, big fun. Vidal Sassoon, I don't know if you remember that name or not, but he was our star guy that was working with us. And then I did a thing when we look back at our careers and we go, what the hell was I thinking? And why didn't anybody grab me and say, girl, what are you thinking? Because what did I do? I was worried that I would wake up and be 45 years old and be a single, childless advertising executive.
Oh,
mm-hmm.
What a horrible fate, huh?
Right. So, and this was 1967. So what did I do? I didn't take a leave of absence. I didn't go in until I quit and went to Europe again with my brother on it. Yeah. What was I thinking? What? Because also they went public a year or two later. Whoa. So I would have been truly a wealthy 45-year-old single.
Childless. Oh,
childless woman, whatever. But I missed out on that one big time. So I went off and did other things and worked for a legal newspaper and I don't know, a series of things. And then I was at a horse show. And this is how your career develops. I'm at a horse show with my brother in North Carolina. And this guy says, so what do you do? And I don't know what I told him, I made up something. And he said, well, we're looking for somebody at the NBC affiliate here in Wilmington, North Carolina.
Wow.
Would you send me a reel, a tape? I said, sure. Thinking, So I went back to LA, somehow got a tape together, sent it to him, and got hired to do news. Yeah, on the NBC affiliate, because in those days, there were no women doing that. There was Barbara Walters. I think she was the only one. Somebody could argue with me, please do, but this was not a thing that women did. And the only thing I had going for me, I think, really was the fact that I was young, reasonably good looking, at least on camera. And I had a California accent.
Oh, that was it.
For this, so I sounded kind of Hollywood. So I took this job, but it turned out to be weather and not news. They wanted to put me on the weather first. And I didn't know dip about weather, nothing. But that was okay with them.
Just look good standing in front of the map. That's all they need.
Oh God, so that was a disaster. But there are more disasters. I could go on because again, it's a long time. But some good jobs and some interesting jobs, and I ended up a creative director for Gallo Winery, which you think, oh, kind of marquee name, biggest winery in the world. Worst job I ever had, including the weather job. It was horrible. And I only lasted like 11 months or something like that. But out of that, I came back to the Silicon Valley, which was where I was kind of focused at the time. My sister was in Silicon Valley. And she had been the one who put an Apple II in my hands. Did you ever have? And said, you're going to learn how to use this. I said, no, I'm not. It's a computer. I don't know anything about that. She said, yes, you are. And she physically put my hands on it and said, okay, you just type here and you do this. So I think I was actually the first person to write advertising copy on a computer in the Silicon Valley. At least I claim to be.
Wow.
So time and place.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I didn't ask for that. I didn't know that was coming.
Right.
Was not trained for that, but I said yes. So I took the computer and I took it under my arm and they all said, what's that? But, that we all know where it went from there, right? The whole industry just went, and so I went to Gallo after that. And I came back and went to work for another agency, got fired again. And we think of that as being, I'm like, what? Because that's what happens. People get fired. You get fired for being too competent just as easily as you get fired for not being competent at all. You get fired for looking wrong. You get fired for so many different reasons, making too much money, whatever.
Yep.
So I went to my sister's house and flopped on her couch, pulled out some Marlboros in those days. That's what we were doing. And sat there and she said, oh, for Pete's sake, just pick up the phone. She said, all kinds of people, you've written copy for all these people, just pick up the phone and see if anybody needs some help. Okay. So
good idea, right?
I called people. I said, hi, yeah, you need any copy? And they all said yes.
Wow.
Because it was 1986, 7, and Silicon Valley was exploding and all these new products were coming out and nobody knew how to write about them. And I had by that time been writing about them for years. And there was this whole industry that was about getting consumers to use technology products. So there was a key role for copy, advertising copy to play in explaining all this stuff to consumers. And I said, yes, okay, I can do that. And I did. And it was interesting and fun. And the money was really good.
Cool.
So unlike a lot of other, by that time, single mother, 3 kids, that's a whole other story. But I was able to make a good living with my own business starting that day. And I just said, oh yeah, I've got my own agency now.
Wow.
As of 20 minutes ago, right? I'm now a creative services agency. and I'm going to really help you out. And so that was the beginning of a great business for me that served me very well for more than a decade after that.
Unbelievable.
And I escaped cube life, right?
Made your way out of the cubicle.
Yes, I got out. I mean, I had not really been stuck in cubes so much as a lot of other people are, but that once I got my feet on the ground, just doing my own thing, and it was relatively simple. And it was hilarious, Christine, because my kids by that time were kind of preteen, and I had my office at home. And so no matter what crazy stuff would be going on in the house, they're fighting and doors are slamming and everything. When the phone would ring, it would all go silent. And if one of them answered the phone, it was Lynne Bowman Creative Services. They all learned, bless their little hearts, at the age of 10, 11, 12, how to help me run a business from home. And I mean, we're doing that again, pandemic wise, that's brought that whole thing back.
Yeah.
But in those days, I didn't even tell people I had kids. It wasn't chic. It wasn't cool.
Right. Yeah.
It was weird that you had a career and you had a bunch of kids too. So now that they're all in their 40s, we laugh about it, and they credit that to a great extent for having taught them some basics about business. What's marketing? What's advertising?
Yeah.
How do you talk on the phone to a client? How do you service a client? How do you always be there for your clients? So on and so forth. Kind of really basic thing, because that's what they saw me doing in the living room, is with one hand, like this.
Thank God it wasn't Zoom at that time, right?
Thank heaven that it was not visible, right? It was just on the phone. And as far as the client on the other end of the line was concerned, I was in some glam office, with secretaries all around and so on. But no, there were a bunch of little screaming kids in the background, dogs, cats, crazy stuff. But it worked. It was okay. It was fine. And so, we do what we need to do when we need to do it.
But it's more than that, Lynne. I mean, it sounds like you have, one of the themes that I see sort of stitched through your story is that when the opportunity came, you said yes, and then figured out how later, I mean,
Absolutely.
Not everyone does that, right?
Well, that's my advice to all of y'all.
Yeah.
Just say yes, and then figure it out after that. Call somebody. Who do I know that can help me with it? Really?
Phone a friend. Yeah, let's go.
Yeah. Who do I know that can help? Now you've got Google. You just look it up, right?
Right. Exactly.
YouTube. You just look it up. Somebody is out there making a how-to video right now about whatever it is that you need to know how to do.
Absolutely. I know these kids these days, they don't know what it was like before Google and YouTube and all that stuff. You had to find a human being that you knew who would be able to teach you how to do these things.
Yeah. So that's a long-winded way of saying my journey, and I've always been writing. I didn't start out to be a writer, but back in the Redken days, I found that I could always find people who were better than I was at the design, at the illustration. Well, my illustrations were pretty good, but I could find art directors who were talented and hardworking and great. Could never find anybody who knew how to write the way I thought the writing should be done. So I just did it. I didn't have anybody saying, "Oh, you're a good," or I didn't take a class, nothing. I just did it. And so where that comes, I think we all have our secret little something in there that's like, well, no, I can do that. I get that. I understand that. And it goes way back, I think, in many cases to childhood, that we're communicators, or we're not, or we're dancers, or we're singers, or we're storytellers, or something. And I, after having had a bunch of kids and now I've got grandkids, it's amazing to me the programming that's in place. I do not for one second believe that kids are born with a blank slate. They're not.
I think it's just the opposite. I think they're born with a lot and we erase things little by little by, feeding them our own insecurities. But
Yeah. Yeah.
so
And also you said insecurities, which is an interesting word because so much of the conversation now on podcasting is about fears and insecurities. And I think one of my legs up, Christine, was that I was the youngest of 3 kids and I was ignored a great deal. I was feral. I was. And I grew up at a time when people just, what kids, right? The moms were in the kitchen drinking Manhattans, smoking Pall Malls, gossiping about the neighbors. The whole idea of parenting was so different. I mean, we would just be gone. And I'm not the first one to say this. You hear people talking about, we would just disappear in the morning and go, building forts up in the mountains, killing rattlesnakes, whatever. I would get on grade pony horses that I'd never been on before. I mean, if I saw my granddaughter doing this, I would just have a heart attack. But we would get on these horses and just go. Oh my goodness. We would just go. And of course, wound up in the dirt, broke our arms, busted our teeth out, all those things. We spent a lot of time in the emergency room.
Oh
we were in the ocean for 8 hours at a time in inner tubes. That's how we grew up. And now, mom and dad are right on top of everything that the kids
helicopter parents, right? That wasn't a thing.
It was not a thing. And plus my mom was not well. She was not strong. And so I didn't even know that other people had moms who did things bought them things and found things and so on. My dad went to work and my mom went to bed and I did whatever I thought I should do. Right. But the good news is you wound up then being an adult that's like, well, I can do that. Right? Or not worried because you can't. It's like, well, can't do that. But, or you just have a different take on life.
Yeah.
When you haven't had a lot of guidance. And
which turns out to be a great advantage. I think, looking at you today, I think that was good that you didn't get, fed all the, you can't do that. You're a girl, you can't do that. Don't try that. Right.
And I'll give my mom and my grandma some credit there. My mom was a graduate student in English Lit when she married my dad. She was educated. She was in college. She was in graduate school. So for that time, but the kicker is her mom had graduated from college. So, okay, do the math on that. Yeah. That was in like 1905, wow, 1910. Yeah. So I come from a fairly long line of pushy women. Independent is maybe a bit euphemistic. My grandma was tough as nails, little redhead. She ran a country school in Utah. So I didn't come into this world to be quiet.
So do you feel like these experiences just sort of led you to, well, first of all, is Brownies for Breakfast, is that your first book?
Oh, no, ma'am. It's my 4th book.
Woo, awesome.
But it's the first one that only has my name on it. I have collaborated with a couple of people to do previous books and had fun. And the theme was roughly the same in a way, health and beauty. Mm-hmm. But this book was particularly about diabetes, type 2 diabetes. And I was driven to do it because I have been diabetic since I was in my 40s, wow. Type 2 diabetes. And that also was a gift. I found out early in my life, in my 40s, that I had this disease. So many people don't find out until it's so much later. And this is a disease that works silently with no particular symptoms on people, destroying you from the inside. And so if you don't know you have it, by the time you are diagnosed, very often it's quite debilitating. It can be very serious.
Wow.
So the combination of losing my mom early in my life and going, I am not going to leave my kids. I am going to be the last one standing. That attitude. And so I began researching and trying to figure out, because the medical community, very little help with a lot of chronic diseases, but particularly one that is based on what you eat and how you move. And I'm not the first one to come on a podcast and say the medical community, they aren't educated about nutrition. They don't tell you this. Big pharma, it's all about money. Rah, rah, rah. All true.
Yeah.
And so I was determined to put the information is really simple. What's not simple is getting people to pay attention and do it.
Yeah.
And very few people, more now than in times past. And I credit things like your show, podcasts, and YouTubes, because the information is out there.
Yeah.
And more as sort of bro culture meets longevity, it's the cool thing that's coming out of that is people are taking health seriously in new ways, like preventive health and healing with food are becoming serious science now. It was considered sort of quackery 15, 20 years ago, really not long ago. And yet all of the research is coming out now to underline the fact that if you eat right and move and you know what you're doing, you can prevent or control, manage, reverse chronic disease, including diabetes and heart disease and other diseases. So just by making a few tweaks in the way you eat, you can make yourself well. I mean, your skin stuff clears up, your GERD clears up, your cough goes away, your nose doesn't run. It's miraculous what you can do by just not eating crap.
Yeah. Amazing.
It is amazing. So I wrote the book, and what it is grandma recipes, simple things, easy things to demonstrate that it's not hard. It's really, really basic, and it's pretty, and it's fun, and you can put good stuff on the table and you'll save money. And we were talking about this before you hit record too. People still don't understand that their wealth, their real wealth, is based on good health. If you or people in your family are suffering from health problems, especially if they're debilitating, that's where all your money will go. In this country, in the United States, and 85% of the bankruptcies in this country are health related. And so what good does it do you, dear pals out there listening now, what good does it do you to make a killing in real estate if it's all going to go because you're eating crappy food and you're not healthy? You have heart disease, you're barely standing up, you have diabetes, you can't have a normal life. Money is not the answer. I love money and I like a lot of it. Don't get me wrong. I've been proud to earn some and have some. But to enjoy it, to reap the benefits of having that for your family, for yourself, you got to be standing up. You have to be healthy. So that's what my little book, it's actually a fairly big book, but it's only 214 pages, a lot of pictures, big pictures, and stories too. And you don't need 300 recipes. You need maybe 50, maybe 20, really. But you need to do them. You need to do something in the kitchen. You cannot drive through and be healthy. You cannot be eating in restaurants every meal or doing DoorDash and be healthy. Sorry. No, you can't. It's impossible. You have to cook real food, whole food, plant-based food at home to be healthy. So that's the bad news. But
that's terrible news. I don't know how
yeah,
I'm likely to starve to death now.
yeah.
So when you got your diagnosis,
Mhm.
did you already have sort of this healthy lifestyle, or is this something that you did
I was broke,
adopted?
honey. I
We're talking
I
ramen
had a
noodles.
bunch of kids, right? And I had to cook for them. So, and I wasn't going to cook crummy food for them. I was going to, and even, earlier before I had my kids, I was the girl in the neighborhood who cooked,
Yeah.
which was not dumb because everybody wanted to come to my house and they brought wine. Um, I don't know why even exactly. I always loved to eat. And so I knew if I couldn't afford to go out and, and then I didn't want to go out with that guy just to get a steak, which, there might've been some of that. Come on, it was the 60s,
All right.
70s. So I cooked and it's not hard. It's really easy. And I didn't have YouTube and all that stuff, but I had a couple of books. I had Fanny Farmer is the
Oh,
book that
wow.
I
I remember that. My mom had that book.
great book, small type, but I was young, so I could read it. So I learned how to cook, but not fancy, but I could put a meal on the table. And then when I had kids, I literally had a couple of girlfriends who would say, how do you do this? How do you even do this? You come home from work and 20 minutes later, I'm eating at your table. Your kids are eating at your table. How do you do that? And so my first book was Fast, Cheap, and Skinny, because I wrote about how to put a meal on the table really quick. And of course, in those days, all I cared about was just staying thin, right? And feeding the kids. So it also turns out that that's a great way to save money on food. When you're cooking healthy, it's cheap. And when the pandemic started, remember the big, oh my gosh, the shelves are empty at the grocery store. We can't get this. There's no food. And so, no. You didn't go into produce, did you, honey? Because there was a ton of cabbage in there. There was no run on celery. There was plenty of celery. So it's a survival mechanism. Eating healthy is cheap. It tastes good. You'll live longer, happier.
Yeah.
So,
well,
yeah.
and you're absolutely right that, I mean, they say that if you don't have your health, you don't have anything, but I don't think people really think about it.
No.
I don't think they really understand the correlation between the decisions they're making today to eat not great stuff and their future, right?
Yeah. And I want to reiterate that I think most of what they're eating, if you're eating anything in a bag or a box, it's not just not great stuff, it's crap. It is big food. It is designed, engineered by the craveability industry. And if you think that I'm spreading, conspiracy there, no, it's out there. Michael Moss has written a brilliant book called Hooked. There are many others about it. It's about money. And you have allowed yourself to be addicted to sugar for money that goes to someone else. So stop. I want you to stop right now. And eat good food, real food, whole food, plant-based food. And there's a lot out there right now about paleo and keto. And some of that is interesting science. It's not all BS. I'm actually working on something right now, which is plant-based keto. Interesting, yeah.
Wow, interesting.
Because and there's another thing that's going around now that is actually ancient. It's not new, but there's new science about fasting and about time restricted eating. Another way of saying fasting for a few hours.
Yeah.
And the science is very, very interesting, particularly for people with chronic disease, like mine, type 2 diabetes. And experimenting with that, I've now brought my hemoglobin A1C down into normal range. So I'm technically not diabetic if you measure me. And that's coming from having been diabetic since I was in my 40s. But what I've learned over the years has now served to put me out of diabetic range. The deal is you can't say I'm cured or it's reversed, because if I stopped doing what I'm doing now, it would be back in a heartbeat.
Right. Yeah.
So to me, that's information that needs to be spread. Everybody needs to know that. I want everybody to know how much power they have to stay out of the healthcare system.
What kinds of things? I mean, obviously diabetes is one that everybody points to when you have, you're not maybe eating optimally, but are there other diseases that you can think of right away that
All of them,
just,
Christine. Heart disease, huge. Cancer. All of the research is coming back now, indicting food choices for cancer. I mean, and this isn't new, but more and more and more research is being done. I mean, I think most of us knew that sugar feeds cancer. And one of the things, even that your lame doctor is going to say to you, if he's an oncologist and you've been diagnosed with breast cancer or whatever, they're going to say to you, try not to eat sugar. And what I'm going to say to you is, drop it like a hot freaking rock. Now, stop. Don't dial it back. Quit. Yeah. And one of the things that I want you to know about in my book, and I'll actually send this to you free. If you go on my website and sign up, I have a Lynnes list. I will send you the brownie recipe, and I will send you a piece about sweeteners, which is something I want everybody to know. And I will send you some other things, recipes, additional recipes and so on, but that's free. It doesn't cost you anything. Because if you don't know what some of the really good sweeteners are, healthy, natural sweeteners that you can get now, that's the key to quitting sugar. Yeah. I think. I'm not asking you to not eat sweets. My book is full of sweets, fantastic sweets, but they're made with monk fruit. And my brownies are made with no flour, no oil. They're made with almond butter and eggs or egg substitute and real cocoa and pumpkin.
Wow.
Vegetable.
Oh,
and
wow.
Pumpkin has this great ability to mimic flour and oil in texture, but it's a vegetable and it's full of vitamins and all this stuff, and it's not overly processed. And it's just, when you have a can of pumpkin at home and you look at the label, what does it say? It says pumpkin. One ingredient. So that's what you want. You don't want anything with a list of ingredients. Another thing actually that I had fun doing in the book was donut recipes. I mean it, and they're great. On one side is my recipe for a red velvet donut with the ingredients listed, and I think there are 5 or 6 ingredients. On the other page, in 7-point type, the whole entire page is filled with the ingredients in a popular drive-through, won't name it, red velvet donut. It has so many ingredients, you will have to have a drink before you finish reading the list. And you are out there, y'all, I know, I see you. You are out there eating these things every day. And then you drink your coffee, your frappuccino coffee that is full of sugar, and milk, which is full of sugar. Milk is sugar as far as your body is concerned. Mm-hmm. And with a little coffee waved over it. And you are holding that against your teeth and your gums all day. So your dentist is having a fit, because you, who have spent all this money getting your teeth straightened and bleached and everything, your teeth are falling out because of your sugary coffee drinks.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a thing.
And and it's not a thing that you think about. No. I mean, it's not a thing that the average person thinks about.
No. So, right? And you're not average. If you're listening to this podcast,
you're clearly above average, but that doesn't mean you're caffeine
way above average. So please put that dang thing down. And if you're going to drink coffee, and I do, I mean, I'm an addict. It's right here, right by me. But I'm also a snob about my coffee, and I make really good French press coffee, drink a lot of it. And that's what I recommend for you, is make friends with really good coffee and drink it black. You can do it. You can absolutely do it. And if you have to drink it with goop in it, there's a recipe in the book for making coconut cream. You can whip it. It's really good. A little vanilla and some of the sweeteners that I recommend, like monk fruit, is delicious. But not any dairy that you buy in the grocery store or that you get in certain chains of coffee houses. It's just not good. It's not good for the earth. It's not good for the cow. And it is not good for you or your guts or your microbiome or your belly or anything or your skin. Nothing. No dairy right now. Stop.
Wow. So Lynne, if someone's listening, which obviously they are, or they wouldn't be hearing me say this, and they wanted to do something today, they want to say, okay, Lynne has shaken me up. She's given me a lot to think about. And
I love that idea that I could shake somebody up.
Yes. And so while I'm waiting for her book to arrive, what is something that I could do right now today that is actually going to make a big difference in the way I feel and get me excited about the prospects of making this bigger change in my life?
Oh, a couple of things. I mean, really, truly, I want you to quit sugar. And you possibly need some help with some information to do that, because it's such a change of lifestyle. And so a beginning step there is, don't put anything in your mouth, even stuff you're familiar with, have been eating for years. Nothing goes in your gorgeous, sweet mouth unless you've read the label. And I highly recommend reading it aloud to anyone who listens, even if it's just you. Read the label. It will tell you so much. And we take for granted that we're eating food, and hey, it's from Kellogg's, or it's from General Mills, or it's from, I don't know, some good no. Read that label and begin to grok what it is you're taking into your body. So that's a baby step toward quitting sugar. Huge. Because what you're going to find, not a surprise, everything you eat is full of sugar.
In all of its many forms, right? I mean, it's got a lot of different names.
It's sucralose, maltodextrin, maple syrup is sugar. Honey is sugar. All of that. And I explain all that in the book too, if you want details. But I would encourage you to just sign up on my website, lynnebowman.com, to get Lynne's list, and I will send you a kind of basic startup kit for how to rethink sweetening everything in your life and how to quit sugar. And then the brownie recipe is in there, and I want you to try it. So good, so easy. And once you go, oh, you mean I don't have to give up really yummy? No, you do not have to give up yummy. You just have to give up crappy. That's all.
Amazing. Well, Lynne, if I can look like you when I'm 76, it'll be completely worth it, because you're absolutely beautiful and you feel very youthful energy.
The filter is really helping. Oh, yeah. The YouTube yeah, those filters, we love them.
Beautiful. So definitely Lynne Bowman, Lynne with an E, Bowman.com. Check out her website. I am 100% going to download the brownie recipe because I happen to love brownies.
We all love brownies.
What's not to love?
What's not to love? Yeah.
Yeah. And to find some pumpkin. I actually love pumpkin, and I never think about really cooking with it, but it's fascinating idea that I'm going to try out for sure.
Did I not send you my book? Do you not have the book, Christine?
I don't have the book.
Because I need to get you that book. I need your snail mail address, because pumpkin is a thing with me. There's a lot of pumpkin in the book. We live where pumpkins are grown. And there's such a great plant, and pumpkins are so beautiful and orange and
Yeah.
delicious and everything. So yeah, I'm
Okay,
all about
fantastic. I cannot wait. I actually grew my own pumpkins last year, but they weren't the eating variety. But this year, maybe we'll do the eating variety.
grow some sugar pies.
Yeah,
Mhm.
excellent. So, Lynn, is there anything that you wish I would have asked you? Is there anything that I haven't touched on? I mean, I know we could talk for a very long time, and I would love to do that at some later date, but I'm
I was
sure
going to
that,
say, I want you to ask me back. That's what I want you to ask
yeah,
me.
absolutely. So
Say,
that's what we'll do. I'll read the book. I'll try some of the recipes, and then we'll have a fun, like, tasting day.
and I have a new thing I'm developing right now that I'll be sending to people who sign up, and that's a keto brownie.
Cool.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So merging the plant-based and the keto together. So that's like
Yes. Yeah.
a fun
Yeah.
fusion.
It can be done.
It
And
can be
if anybody can do it, a snarky grandma can do it, right?
right. Absolutely. Lynn, thank you so much for being with us today. This has been
Thank you.
fantastic. And you've actually given me a lot to think about as far as my eating habits go. I don't do a lot of, I don't drink sugar at all or anything like that, but there are certainly areas for improvement in my personal diet. So I can't wait to try some of your recipes.
Great.
And thank you, listener, for listening. I'm really excited that you got to hear Lynn and meet her and hear some of her like cool, no holes barred story of like, just say yes when it seems even remotely interesting, which is advice for your life. And I hope that you will share this episode with somebody who you think could use a little bit of inspiration for either their diet or just their saying yesness, if that's
A
a
little
thing.
bit of yes goes
A
a
little
long.
bit of yes, exactly. And I hope to see you next week.